Seattle, Washington-based company focused on transforming the commercial model for accessing the mobile internet. Gary has 15 years of mobile thought leadership at Microsoft, Hutchinson Whampoa, and Real Networks. He has a doctorate degree in high-energy particle physics and was the video developer for Real Video, the first ubiquitous streaming video solution for the internet, and of which I am a fan. Please welcome from Seattle, where it rains much more than it does in Melbourne, Gary Greenbaum.
Thank you. Gary, I think you're showing your age a little bit on the Real Video. But it's a great pleasure and honor to be here today to talk about the Syntonic business and investment opportunity. As background, Pacific Ore provided a conditional offer to acquire the assets of Syntonic back in December. We're currently in process of closing that transaction sometime in mid-June, obviously getting shareholder approval, re-compliance for the company, and re-quotation. So very exciting times for Syntonic and investors. At the end of the acquisition, Syntonic, my company, will have management and control of Pacific Ore. It will be renamed Syntonic Limited, and it will assume the business operations of Syntonic, the U.S. company. Oops, this one. Okay, so I started this company 3 years ago. I realized that the data plan, as we all know it, was really restricting business model innovation and limiting sort of the full potential of the mobile internet. My vision was really to transform, as Jerry mentioned, the current access model, which is bits and bytes, which really don't mean anything to anyone, to a model that has value to end users, namely content and content services for work and for play. Basically what we do is we bundle access with content. And in doing so, and I'll show you, this introduces new business models and new user experiences. Right away, we got interest from all the top mobile operators around the world, very much interested in growing new revenue streams around these new opportunities around content. We got interest from the major content providers who realized that this new model provides them new reach and new opportunity for people to engage in their products. And then even businesses, frustrated by the current inflexibility of the current data plan, were very much interested in how our technologies can help improve productivity for the workforce. So first thing I did was I assembled a top-notch team of leadership with very much diverse skills and expertise. But we all share one thing in common. That is a track record, proven track record, of delivering and deploying commercially transformative technologies into the marketplace. My background, I was at Microsoft, I was at Hutchinson, a 3-brand company for the last 10 years or so, focused on mobility. Prior to that, I was in various early stage companies, very successful early stage companies, including Real Networks. Rahul Aggarwal, our co-founder, is a career engineer, very successful with his own professional technical services company, servicing a lot of the technical needs for the Fortune 100. And Ben Rothholtz, our Chief Marketing Officer, well known in the gaming industry. Prior to working at Syntonic, he was the head of marketing for PopCap Games and did the marketing around some of the biggest casual games in the world. Bejeweled, Plants vs. Zombies. Anyway, this is definitely a dream team to work with, and I'm very honored. Complementing the executive team is a world-class group of strategic advisors and investors. Steve Elfman, former president of Sprint, is on our advisory board. He's been very instrumental in helping us with our mobile operator engagements. Rudy Godrez, the former VP and general counsel at Facebook, again, very helpful in guiding us with some of our content relationships. Just last week, we announced that John Landau, who just retired from Tata Communications, was joining our strategy advisory board. He's the former SVP there, Senior Vice President, in charge of strategy. And Bill Richter joined our strategy team about 2 years ago. He was the former president of EMC, the world's largest storage company that was just acquired last year by Dell for roughly $70 billion. Equally strong is our world-class set of investors that have been very supportive with Syntonic for the last 3 years that we've been in business. So why invest now? What's going on? Why should we invest in Syntonic right now? A couple of reasons. Number one, we have product in market today generating real revenue. Real revenue for Syntonic, but also real revenue for mobile carriers that for the first time in 20 years are starting to see the revenues, the ARPUs, average revenue per unit, either decline or flattened. Second, if you take a look at the addressable space for Syntonic, it's enormous. There are roughly 6.1 billion Syntonic endpoints available to us by 2020. We have the credibility of working with the top operating companies in the world. AT&T we've announced, Tata Communications we've announced. We did another deal with Samsung in the past, and more to come. But more importantly, we launched in the US last year, and we're going global. We mentioned that we're going to be launching in Southeast Asia in a release several months ago. We're planning to do that shortly, as well as Latin America. Time is right to invest now. So we have two products on the market, one for consumers, one for business. The consumer product is called Freeway by Syntonic, and it focuses on something called sponsored data and data rewards. I'll talk a lot more about that in a moment. Our other product is called Syntonic Data Flex, and that's more for businesses, and the focus there is mobile split billing. So I'll start with Freeway by Syntonic initially. So Freeway, this is the free way for consumers to access content over the mobile internet. But moreover, it's the new way for content sponsors to acquire, engage, and monetize customers over the mobile internet. So what's the problem? As I mentioned when I started, the data pricing model is just not effective in fully monetizing the full mobile internet. And I'm not talking about the Australian market or the US market, where data is relatively inexpensive. I'm talking about markets, Southeast Asia, Latin America, where data is expensive compared to the average household income. Roughly 2 billion people worldwide ration their data, make a conscious decision whether to use a particular app or a particular service on their mobile device. 3.7 billion people worldwide simply cannot afford mobile internet access at all. This is the problem. Freeway by Syntonic solves that issue. It allows for brands, content sponsors, to pay for consumer access to their applications and to their services. What Syntonic does is bring together content providers, sponsors, and mobile operators. These are three groups that would never spontaneously ever come together. And we do this to enable these new models around sponsored data. The marketplace is estimated to be roughly $23 billion in the coming years for sponsored data activities, and we are the leader and forefront in that space today. I want to show you sort of the consumer-facing side of our product, and I strongly recommend stopping by our table, and I can walk you through the complete end-to-end solution that we have. So this is the consumer side, and you can see it's a set of offers from different content providers. So in this case, Skype, for example, is offering 100 megabytes of use to use Skype. And why would they want to do this? Well, there are certain geographies, for example, in Indonesia, where the top 5 apps in Indonesia are all messaging apps, and they're not Skype. So this is opportunity for Skype to promote the product in a market where they don't have any market share today, but can grow market share as a result of this particular sponsorship. Clash of Clans. What's interesting about the gaming space, Ben Rotholtz, our chief marketing officer, has a lot of experience in this space. And he was saying that, for the most part, people will pay and play games before they pay and play the rent. Pay their rent. Why gaming companies are so interested in sponsorship is that it increases engagement. Through increased engagement, there are means of then monetizing that customer, as well as retaining that customer longer term. These are some of the examples. For example, Coca-Cola wants to promote the brand by sponsoring a cricket match. Again, this is all compelling premium content paid for by someone else. And what's really interesting about this is from a business model perspective is that, for example, take a music service, like a Rhapsody music service. They're willing to pay me to put their app in here. They're willing to pay me $8 if somebody actually subscribes to their music service through the sponsorship. So I'm willing to sponsor that. I'm willing to take that $8 and offer the user, say, 100 megabytes or a month's worth of use. So it's some really interesting opportunities, both for Syntonic, for content providers, to enable these new and unique content offers for consumers worldwide. I think value proposition is pretty clear. Consumers get access to premium content. Operators get increased traffic over their networks that they can monetize. And as I've shown, content sponsors now have the means of increasing reach by providing content to the unreachables today that don't have the means of paying for access. They can use our tools to convert this new reach into active customers. They can deepen loyalty. I mentioned the gaming scenario where people will play more when there's no friction to actually use their applications. And of course, this leads to greater monetization for the content sponsor. So the question is, how do we make money in this? It sounds great. Well, it's really a multi-sided market. We're making money from the mobile operator, and we're making money from the content provider. So on the mobile operator side, we white label and license our technology to various mobile carriers. We announced Tata Communications last month, for example, where there's an annual license fee we get. But more importantly, we actually get a tariff for every bit of sponsored data that traverses our platform. On the content side, there's a new model taking place right now. It's called CPA, cost per action. I hinted at this a little bit earlier, where if the consumer takes an action, say downloads an app or subscribes to a music service, companies are willing to pay affiliation fees, and they're quite large. For example, the Amazon Kindle app. If somebody downloads that app through my service, I get $3, for example. I mentioned music service. So there's a lot of money to be had through these affiliations by promoting these applications and providing this unique promotion around sponsored access. I give an example of the Indonesia market. I kind of over-index this a little bit because we did make some announcements about launching in Southeast Asia. So in Indonesia, there are 4 mobile carriers that I can license this technology to. But interestingly, the average app download over those 70 million smartphones in Indonesia averages out to about 45 million downloads a day. Now, I'm not saying that I'm getting $2 to $4 for every one of those. But give me a small fraction of those where I am getting affiliation fees, and the numbers get quite large. Okay, now I'd like to pivot to our business side of our offering called Syntonic Data Flex. It leverages the same underlying technology as our Freeway product. Here it's really about cost savings for the employer by enabling split billing for employee devices. So what is the problem? I think we're all aware that mobile phones have added greatly to the productivity of the workforce today. In fact, statistics show that on average, an employee will spend 5 extra hours, up to 5 extra hours per week with their mobile device as more and more business resources go online. Sounds great. Unfortunately, there's some cost to this to the employer. If the employer gives you a phone to use for business, they are paying on average $1,700 a year per employee for the all-up cost of the hardware support and access. If the employer is allowing you to use your own phone and reimbursing you, we've done the studies that show, because the company doesn't know how to reimburse, that they're overpaying by over 50%. And if they're allowing you to use your phone but not reimbursing you, and they're in the United States, that company could potentially be subject to a class action lawsuit, and you'll be paying much more than $1,700 to settle that. So what Syntonic Data Flex does It allows employees to use their personal device, and we split it into business and personal. What's personal stays personal and secure. What's business is owned by the business. All the business data is sent to the business so that they can appropriately reimburse their employee for the business use. They get all of that data so they can stay compliant. One of the issues right now is today's phones are really opaque black boxes. Businesses don't have any understanding of how their employees are using those devices. So we provide them that level of analytics. And so in doing so, we allow the company to pay for the employee's access to business resources, saving them up to 50% of their mobile spend. We increase the workforce up to 5 hours per week, as I mentioned earlier. The employee is thrilled to death. They can use their own personal phone, and now they get paid to use their own personal phone for business. So it's win-win, as well as the operator is very much interested because they have 2 data plans on a single device. So I would recommend stopping by our booth, and I'll walk you through this. But again, there's 2 sides to this. There's the consumer-facing side with our app. These are the apps that have been assigned to Gary Greenbaum at Company XYZ. And this is the entire back-end solution so that IT can provision the service in a very efficient manner. That is, enroll their employees, provision the applications, and get the real-time analytics about how their employees are using business resources. So Syntonic DataFlex comes in 2 different versions. A small, medium-sized version called our standard version, and then for the enterprise, we have a premium version. Obviously, we charge a premium for the premium version, and it comes equipped with additional security functionality, as well as richer data analytics to serve the needs of the larger enterprise customer. The business model is basically an annual subscription per employee with a maintenance and support contract thrown in. So I've given kind of rough numbers of how this pencils out for a small, medium-sized business. For a 500-person company, Syntonic revenue is about $36,000, saving the company about $200,000. For a large enterprise of 5,000 employees, Syntonic's revenue is roughly $500,000, saving the company about $1.8 million. To put this in perspective, in the United States, there are 330,000 of these small, medium-sized businesses. And there's about 16,000 of these. So it doesn't take much of that total addressable audience to really amplify itself into large revenue gain. Another way to look at the opportunity space is the addressable audience for smartphones used for business today. So today, there are roughly 400 million smartphones used at work worldwide, ramping up to roughly 500 million over the next couple of years. Again, just give me 1% of that audience, and that translates, using the same economics of that previous slide, to roughly 300 million in revenue, just 1% of that audience. I'd like to review a little bit the numbers associated with the acquisition. There's been some updates recently on the timetable in particular. But currently, Pacific Ore's outstanding shares are roughly 656 million. The consideration shares for the acquisition total 1.2 billion plus 500 million performance shares. Our capital raise that we announced was up to $1 million, and that would be 50 million, up to 50 million shares that we will be releasing for capital raise, and then some transaction options and shares. So the grand total is 2 billion shares with 500 million performance shares and 25 million option shares. The thing I do want to point you to is an update to our timetable. We're going to be issuing our notice of meeting next week, followed by our prospectus in early May. And so what has happened is things have shifted out by roughly 2 weeks based on our previous announcement, but we're still on track for requotation and concluding the recompliance and acquisition by the middle of June. So in the last minute or so, I'm really excited about 2016. Closing this ASX listing and capital raise, #1, but also we're going to be seeing the launch of Syntonic DataFlex, broadening the release of Syntonic DataFlex in the United States and expanding into Europe, and seeing Freeway by Syntonic migrate into Southeast Asia and Latin America. Please stop by my table. I'm more than happy to walk you through the complete end-to-end for both of these stories, and I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you to the very excited Gary Greenbaum. Now, before